I mean, many people have made the argument that by loosening the norms around marriage, it's actually been to the benefit of men in some sense, to be able to have lots of promiscuous partners with many different women and perhaps impregnate some of them and not have to stick around. There's no obligation to them beyond producing child support payment.
That means that it's advantageous to psychopathic men.
Right, dark triad types.
Well, exactly, because the hallmark of psychopathy is short-term advantage taken by a given individual without care for anyone else. And it certainly seems to me like dating apps like Tinder. Now, I don't want to call every male who's successful on Tinder a psychopath. I'm not saying that, but I would say that it isn't obvious to me at all that if you're a successful polyamorous male on Tinder, and so that's going to be a very tiny subset of men that are hyper-selected by women, a tiny subset of men who receive almost no rejection, they're set up to learn to be psychopathic because all their interactions with other people can be devoted to short-term sexual gratification with no emotional intimacy or long-term commitment. And that's a hell of a training ground as far as I'm concerned. That's
okay. So let's parse this out a little bit here. First and foremost, Tinder is something that's done voluntarily. Let's just start that off right there. So when we're talking about dark triad traits, and we've talked about that actually about 4 weeks ago, I had John from Modern Life Dating on here, and we were talking about why is evil sexy? And I'm using evil in the sort of colloquial sense. I'm not saying, oh, evil. I'm saying, why is it dark triad traits? Why is it the things that we think are asocial or antisocial tend to be more sexually arousing or attractive to women? So again, we're putting the cart before the horse here, I think. The idea that men are fiendishly exploiting Tinder to psychopathically exploiting Tinder to just go out and have these short-term kicks for fun kind of thing, or to increase their notch count or increase their ego, centrism. Now, are there guys that do that? But I'm not going to rule out that idea, but let's be honest here. For by and large, women are doing the choosing on Tinder. They're certainly doing it on Bumble, and they're certainly doing it on Hinge. Okay, it is because in those platforms, it is up to the guy, or it is up to the woman to make the choice on those. Sorry, I've got my audio here. But to make that choice. So who's doing the selection here? It's not that guys are fiendishly, I'm going to get these girls kind of thing. And also remember, this is primarily when it comes to those programs, or to go those apps, dating apps, it's not like the guys there trying to, it's very limited, let's just say, for men to run game on Tinder. It's primarily visual. Woman sees the guy. She says, yeah, that's great. I want to get with you. I don't care if you're a sociopath. I don't care if you're a convicted criminal. Hybristophilia, right? I don't care what your moral, imperatives are or whatever like that. It's, are you hot and are you DTF? And I can't expect, well, maybe Rob, but I can't expect Jordan Peterson to understand this, because he's kind of far removed from this, and he's kind of has no real frame of reference for this. I personally had to actually come up to speed on this as well. I had to have guys like Myron and John and some other guys help me out with that, right? This is how we do it. Instagram is the #1 dating app online right now. Tinder, yes, okay. But I think there's this presumption, there's this idea that if there is polyamory, if there's casual sex in any way, if there is sex without commitment, sex without investment, sex without emotion, sex without this, cosmic significance, then it's because guys are fiendishly trying to get these girls into bed. Now, Rob, prior to this little clip right here, Rob says that it's bed to the benefits of men that these technologies exist, right? Like, say, for instance, and I've heard this a million times, this is a holdover, I think, from militant feminism from the 1970s, okay? Which is, well, and I still hear this from the abortion crowd today. Well, abortion and hormonal birth control work into the advantage of guys, because guys don't have to worry about it anymore. Guys don't have to worry about pregnancy. Guys don't have to worry about that. And it's complete nonsense, because it is women, by and large, who have all power when it comes to pregnancy, obviously. My body, my choice, right? If you don't have a uterus, you don't get a say. Talked about that many times. When it comes to hormonal birth control, for men, there's 2 forms of birth control, really. Well, I should say 3. One's abstinence, just keep your pecker in your pants, right? You'll hear that all the time thrown at guys, because again, the presumption is guys let the little head do the thinking for the big head, right? How many times have we heard that since 1965? So there's that aspect. Then there's the you can, of course, abstain. You can get a vasectomy, I suppose, because that's real popular right now. We want to say, oh, we need reversible vasectomies. Which is kind of ridiculous. I understand why they're trying to make an absurd sort of play for that. And then finally is a condom. Okay. So you should use a condom, which, by the way, we have a new law in California right now that makes it illegal to, quote unquote, stealth. Okay. Which is pulling the condom off without the consent of your partner. Well, who does that affect most? Who's going to wear the condom during sex? It's supposed to affect men. And what the idea is that men are somehow fiendishly whipping off the condom in the middle of their mid-stroke, right? And putting it back in, and then fiendishly impregnating the woman to say, see you later, baby. When in fact, it's usually the woman that says, take off the condom. I want to feel you. It's usually the other way around. It's not guys who are or stealthing or anything like that. And I love how women sort of throw that one out there. And honestly, I think this is just sort of a bone that they're throwing to women, at least in the state of California. It'll probably be, countrywide at some point. But if you took the condom off, then that's technically grape, because that's now sex without consent, because it was consent with the rubber on, and it's not consent without the rubber on. Well, again, most guys are going to want to keep the rubber on anyways, because that's their only line of defense. For women, I don't know, God knows how many different hormonal varieties of hormonal birth control there are. Norplant, you get this pill, you get that pill. And then I realize there's different types of pills. But long story short, women have a more or less unilateral control over the human reproductive process. We never want to talk about that when it comes to this kind of conversation here. Also, why is it that women want dark triad guys? When we talk about like the default conversation, when we talk about like the guys who are fiendishly exploiting game, like if you learn game, then you'll turn into this dark triad, fiend to just increase your notch count and then just ejaculate and evacuate kind of thing. When in fact it is women doing the choosing. It is women who are deciding, in fact, legally, legislatively deciding that they want to get with that top tier that he was just saying, the minuscule top, percentages of guys. Now we talk about the Pareto principle, and he's going to talk about the Pareto distribution here in just a minute, but he's even talking like smaller than that. Like we as you say, 80-20, but maybe he's talking about the 5% of guys who can go on Tinder and just have women line up around the block to bang them. Why is that? We never put the onus of attraction or the onus of the results or the products of that woman having sex with that guy on the woman. It doesn't even enter into the conversation. It doesn't even enter the thought process. So you can only take this so far. Yeah. Should guys have more responsibility? That's all this is. It's just responsibility. No authority, no nothing. And then of course, what's funny to me is anytime I bring up stuff like this, on a particular podcast, women will say, well, what about you? What about guys? Guys do it too. Ooh. We don't hear that here. We're talking about the guys in this sense. And it's easy pickings. That's why he wanted to talk about patriarchy here just a minute ago. And he's right about that. I do agree with him. I've said this on several other podcasts. Patriarchy is a balanced system, or it used to be a balanced system. Ideally, it was a balanced system, meaning that the guy had authority. Men had authority over women and over their families and over their children and over the direction. They were the head of household. Today, they are an equal partner, ostensibly an equal partner. They're an equal partner that is never going to be equal, because they're not either making enough money or they're not, because we always want to make that metric about equality, about socioeconomic, issues. So when a woman gets a promotion at work, then suddenly it's time for divorce. When that guy is making more money than the woman, then we're equal partners. So there's never any authority that comes along with that responsibility anymore. And I don't think that, again, I know Jordan's been on PragerU several times, and I would say this straight to those people too as well, is that responsibility without authority is slavery. And that's where we're at right now. So we want to keep, I agree with him in this, is like we're feminists and a gynocentric social order. And whenever it is convenient to bring up patriarchy, smash the patriarchy, whenever it's convenient to do that, it's a real easy target, because we've been hearing it over and over and over again for the past 65 years now. So it's not so much about patriarchy as it is about wanting to disempower or deauthorize, right? Take away the authority from men. So men have all responsibility and 0% authority. We want them to be responsible for their families, but we don't give them the authority to affect that responsibility over their families. This isn't anything I haven't covered in the past, but I want to point it out here, because when it comes to women selecting guys to have sex with, to breed with, to have to become a single mother with, as Rob was saying in the beginning here, when he went out, his friend went on Tinder, he was in the school area, like when he was broadening his search, or was staying local around the school, it was women who were young women who were into poly, or they were into non-exclusivity, they were into casual sex, they were into whatever. It's that hookup culture that I was talking about. There's no really such thing as hookup culture. It is women making those selections, not guys that are making those selections. But yet we want to believe that it is those guys. We want to believe, because men have a higher libido, or men have a higher sex drive, so that they're the ones that are, push. Hey, that's who it benefits, right? Because if she doesn't get pregnant, then it benefits you, because it's all about your dick. And it's not. It's about the women making those choices now. It might have been in the 70s. It might have been in the 80s. In 2021, women are the ones making the selections. It's not guys. He's going to also bring up the topic here of what I brought up last week, which was the virginity rates of guys between 2008 and 2018, and the spike right there. You're going to make that observation, but you're not going to connect that dot with the dot where you just said, well, the girls on my campus are all into casual sex, but if I broaden the search, then they're all single mothers. I mean, that if there isn't a red pill in this show, that's the one. In my university area, radius or whatever for Tinder, all the young women want to have casual sex. But if I go outside the 50-mile range, then suddenly they all turn into single mothers. I know correlation is not causation, but that's a hell of a correlation.